A Cyverse treasure hunt. Hey everyone, Templar74 here with another Yu-Gi-Oh video, and today's Yu-Gi-Oh video is going to be my thoughts and impressions regarding the latest episode of Yu-Gi-Oh VRAINS, episode 65, and I gotta be honest with you guys, this episode, after seeing this one and combining it with last week's episode, it's actually a really good combination here. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't expect anything less than crazy complicated to explain the way that Yusaku Playmaker met Kusanagi. But with all that said, I'll talk about that before too long. Let's talk about this week's episode. So the episode begins with unknown and unnamed, because at this point that's the identities they're going by, but it's really Kusanagi and Playmaker. They're going through this dungeon, and this dungeon is supposedly an urban legend that there is a Cyverse deck contained within the dungeon, and that this dungeon was built by this person that was scared when he found out that the Knights of Hanoi were hunting the Cyverse, so he built this dungeon to hide the Cyverse deck from the Knights of Hanoi. So we see unknown and unnamed. They're going through this dungeon, and at first we see Kusanagi, unnamed at this point, end up triggering a trap, and he almost falls into it. And this trap basically is spikes with a bunch of dual discs in it, and basically if your dual disc hit that spike and it's left there, you weren't able to log out. So yeah, this is a very dangerous trap here. But eventually these two do prevail. They make it into this chamber, and in this chamber it's set up a lot like a duel arena. And in this duel arena, we actually see a Knight of Hanoi that had managed to work his way over and find the Cyverse deck where this Cyverse deck was supposedly contained. And he actually comes up to where this thing is. He tries to approach the deck, and his dual disc triggers the mechanism in the room. And basically what ends up happening is this ancient ghost just materializes out of nowhere, and you have to duel this ancient ghost by completing this puzzle. And this puzzle is, the ancient ghost has 4,000 points with a set field, and the duelist opposing the ancient ghost only has 100 life points and a set field. Now, the Knight of Hanoi tries to break through using Update Jammer and Megamorph. This whole combo, though, does not work. The Knight of Hanoi fails, and he gets destroyed, because he even said, well, I'll just keep trying, and the ghost's like, nope, I have none of that. And destroys him right then and there, and his dual disc becomes imprisoned in these spikes. So seeing this, Yusaku and Kusanagi, or unknown and unnamed at this point, really are torn here, because unknown, or Playmaker, wants to go up against this ghost. We have to get the Cyverse deck. That's why we're here. Even if this is a trap, we know it's not a trap built by the Knights of Hanoi. We need to get this deck to draw the Knights of Hanoi out to get answers. But unnamed is like, well, you know, this is too dangerous. Let's get out of here. So eventually, though, we do see Playmaker, or unknown, decide to take on the challenge, and he rises up to challenge the ancient ghost. And we actually see him there trying to figure out what he's going to do, because he's got the combination of cards between what's in his hand, in the graveyard, and on the field. He's able to do it. He's got a trap and magic combination that would be able to lower the ghost slide points down to 0. But there's a very specific way he has to do it. So while this is going on, we see another Knight of Hanoi come in right behind him, and he's actually going to try to go in and take the Cyverse deck away from unknown and unnamed. But as unknown continues to duel the ancient ghost, unnamed actually manages to hold down the Knight of Hanoi and handcuff him to the wall with one of those old medieval gauntlets that are chained to the wall. So now this Knight of Hanoi can't do anything, but they know it's not going to last very long. So we see unknown finally go after the ghost, and using this card combination, he's able to continuously link summon, and is able to summon enough monsters to trigger the effects of his two cards, his spell card and his trap card, that are going to be able to wipe out the ghost life points. And so he does this. The ghost's life points drop down to 0. We see a smile appear on the ghost's face as he evaporates. He's gone. And the Knight of Hanoi is actually still trying to break through at this point, and he does end up being overcome by the trap. Because as we see him break away, Unknown and Unnamed come up to the sarcophagus where the Cyberse deck is supposedly located, and the second they touch it, it evaporates. And the whole place starts collapsing, and the Knight of Hanoi says, I knew it was just an urban legend. It's a shame, but oh well. Knight of Hanoi's gone, and Unknown and Unnamed, who are frustrated at this point because they appear to have been tricked, log out before the whole dungeon collapses on them. But that's not where the episode ends, because we actually learned that this entire duel quiz that Unknown went through is actually a map of Den City, because the duel arena is actually a perfect line out of Den City. And Yusaku realizes this. So they're going back to this warehouse here on the docks, because we see that we had like the bridges and we had the whole pier shape. They come up to this warehouse and they find a door that's actually marked with a link card, so they know they're right in the right place. And they open the door, and there is like the mirror image of the sarcophagus we saw evaporate in Vrains, or in the dungeon rather, in Vrains, laying right out in front of them. And of course, within the sarcophagus lays the Cyberse deck. And that's pretty much the story of how Unknown and Unnamed come across the Cyberse deck, the ultimate weapon against the Knights of Hanoi. But there is still a question that's left unanswered as we transition back to the real world with Kusanagi, Takeru, and Flame and I. And that is, Playmaker hasn't become Playmaker yet. And it's at this time we transition back to the school where Naoki, this person that nobody can understand. Anyway, rant about Naoki, not the point of this video. Anyway, so Naoki is there, and he turns around to Yusaku and says, I know your secret. And at first it looks like Naoki may have realized that, hey, Yusaku is Playmaker. But it turns out that's not the case, and Naoki asks Yusaku a stupid question. Yusaku leaves, and Naoki grows furious at him and says, I'm going to rat you out to Playmaker. And that was pretty much that whole thing. Naoki's just blowing steam, you know. Nobody likes that guy. I don't understand why he's in this series at all. He's the new Sawatori. But anyway, rant about Naoki, not the point of this video. We then go back to the food truck, and Kusanagi recounts for the day that Yusaku, or Unknown, officially became Playmaker. And that essentially concludes his story to Takeru, Flame, and AI. And yeah, that was pretty much the episode. Now, like I said, this episode was crazy complicated, but when you combine it with last week's episode, you know, looking back at it, looking at both of these episodes, it actually makes sense that such a complicated person like Yusaku would meet Kusanagi in the most crazy, drawn-out, elaborate, complicated way they could possibly imagine. But yeah, these two episodes really did signify how close that adventure brought Yusaku and Kusanagi, and basically the Cyberse deck, and Kusanagi mentions this in the episode, this week's episode rather, is that the Cyberse deck represents their bond and everything they've gone through to get it. And yeah, it was a really great way to learn how these two became friends and how they began working together. And yeah, I expected nothing less when Yusaku's involved. But anyway, with all that aside, this episode, I give an 8 out of 10. It was really well thought out how this managed to come together, how the Cyberse was actually brought to Yusaku. It just made sense. You know, it's complicated just like he is, and I really have to give Vrains credit for really going all out and thinking of the most crazy, complicated thing they could because it involved Yusaku. And now, if we're ranking last week's episode and this week's episode together, I give it a 9 out of 10. It is a really great way to signify how these two came together, how these two teamed up to go after the Knights of Hanoi and uncover the truth about the Lost incident. So with all that being said, as always, in the comments section down below, let me know what you guys thought of this week's episode and last week's episode, frankly. Did you love them? Did you hate them? Did you think it was just there? What were your thoughts on using the most crazy, complicated thing they could possibly come up with to be the way that Yusaku and Kusanagi meet up for the first time. Just let me know what your guys' thoughts are about all this in the comment section down below, because as always, I enjoy hearing from you. Alright everyone, as always, Templar74 signing off. Have a great day everybody, and I'll talk to you all next time. Goodbye everybody.